Tip number 163 from the book 501 Contractor Tips. I am the author, Greg Vandenberg. Heck, there's my name right there. Look at that. Anyway, tip number 163, how big? How big of an office, how small of an office do you need? How big? Do you need something huge? I worked for some large framing contractors. These guys were building probably anywhere between 10 to 200 units at a time. Probably had anywhere from 2 to 10 jobs going at one time. And they needed a place where they could park their forklifts, they needed for their storage bins, their tools. They needed a place for their office, their estimating. They needed all this stuff. They needed storage space for all the plans and the old taxes and all this stuff like that. They needed a lot of space, and they had a lot of space. They rented big buildings. But I remember going to some of these contractors' offices or their yards, and there was empty space. You could see it. There was all this empty space. You know, one guy that we worked for would come in, he'd park his Ferraris in there, his motorhome, stuff like that. You know, okay, we got plenty of space. Okay, well, this tells you probably don't need this much space. Then we worked for another guy who used to buy plywood, another company that used to buy plywood when it was cheap, store it, and then use it for their jobs. They were speculating a lot on the lumber, actually purchasing it. They weren't speculating on the stock market. They were speculating, buying the stuff they knew they were going to need in the future, and saving a lot of money. So they had a lot of plywood in this yard. So it all depends on what you're going to be doing. Like I mentioned in my last video, I actually had an office in a closet at one time. It was probably about a 4 foot by 4 foot area. You know, if all you have room for is one table in your apartment or your house, that's it. One small table. It's going to be in the dining room or going to be in your bedroom. You know, then that's what you got to work with. You know, and again, work with what you can afford to work with. Don't just go out and rent an office because you know the other contractors that are doing work like yours have an office. You don't, if you don't understand how they are paying for the office. The office could be paid for. Maybe it's a business that's 20 years old, 50 years old. Office has been paid for a long time. There's no more office overhead here. So if you don't know exactly how they are paying for these offices, or if they're already paid for, this could actually create an illusion for you. So don't get caught up in something. You see a big plumbing contractor and you want to be a big plumbing contractor, but you're only doing 2 or 3 jobs a week. This might not be the same. You're not on the same scale yet. So don't jump the gun and say, hey, I'm going to go get a big office and do what they're doing without having a crystal clear understanding of exactly what they are doing to afford to remain or be in that office. So realistically, this is simple. Use your head. Don't don't let your ego jump in here, and you want to impress everybody. You're going to go buy 5 or 6 vehicles and go out and spend all this money, and within a year you're out of business. You can't do that. You've got to play this thing smart. So that's it for this. I talked about some of the sizes of offices that I worked in the previous video, so I don't need to go into much detail about that. So off to the next video.